Let's see if he
Can
pops
you
up.
see the picture behind me, by the way? Let me
I
just.
cannot. Oh, the Three Stooges. That's funny.
There they are, right there on your shirt and
Yeah, that's cool.
on the wall behind me.
It was meant to be, my friend. Today's first guest is Sonny Mone. If you've ever listened to the Crazy Horse album Left for Dead, you may recognize the singer wasn't a guy named Neil Young. That's because the guy singing is Mr. Sonny Mone. In addition to singing on the track, Sonny wrote 7 of the 9 songs on the album. As a solo acoustic artist, Sonny has shared the bill with players like Roger McGuinn from the Byrds, Dave Mason and Jim Capaldi from Traffic, Leon Russell, The Tubes, and Tears for Fears. He's also recorded with Matt Malley from Counting Crows, Victor Bisetti from Los Lobos, and our mutual friend Dean Dinning from Toad the Wet Sprocket. My second guest is David Morgan. David is a singer, songwriter, and keyboard player. As a singer keyboard player, he's worked with the Association, Rick Nelson, and the Stone Canyon Band. He's recorded with Jim Messina, Dolly Parton, Jerry Lee Lewis, Bruce Hornsby, Little Richard, Leonard Cohen, Tom Wopat, Chuck Negron of Three Dog Night, Delaney Bramlett, Bonnie Tyler, Kenny Rogers, and Dodie Stevens. He's worked for years with Mike Post, as well as with George Martin, Ray Charles, and Ray Charles recorded his song, Now I Don't Believe That Anymore, on another cool note. Now for some fun stuff. David has worked for many years as a studio session player and singer for commercials, television, and film soundtracks. He sang the theme songs for Hardcastle and McCormick and Who's the Boss? His film work includes work on Teen Wolf, Rhinestone, Bitter Harvest, and Thunder Run. Television soundtracks credits include Hill Street Blues, Cop Rock, where he appeared as a singing bad guy.
I did indeed.
Roseanne, Wise Guy, and Magnum P.I. Since 2015, he's been singing with Three Dog Night. Here we go. This is my little spin on YouTube. This is my spin on YouTube. This is my research. In 1493, on Christopher Columbus's second voyage to the Americas, he brought Spanish horses. They were reintroduced to the continental mainland by Hernan Cortez in 1519. It's noted that the American Indians called the horses big dogs. 3 dogs would make 1 horse. That would sure be a crazy looking horse. So I thought, let's see how things would get with the crazy horse guy in the Three Dog Night. Pretty inventive, huh? And a little bit of a history thing there. And Sonny, by the way, spends his I think every day, right, with the horses.
Oh yeah, I'm a horse rancher, actually. Yeah, so I have intimate relationships with horses. Believe me.
You know, being English, my parents used to watch All Creatures Great and Small.
I remember that.
Remember that? Actually, I think they brought it back. They did. They brought it back recently. Have you ever heard of this show, David?
Of course.
Okay, so it's huge. And he says in the book, he says that you have to be a horse person or not. There's nobody in the middle. You either like horses or you don't.
Very much like Neil Young.
Yeah, is he a big horse fella?
Yeah, no.
No,
you either love him or you hate him.
Oh, okay.
There's no in between.
Yeah. I'm kind of in between because I love horses and I like to ride them and I ride them fairly well, but I've probably done it a dozen times in my life. You know what I mean? I don't have a horse. I don't, I'm not a bad rider. I can ride the trails. I can do all that stuff and I love doing it. And I think they're great animals, but I'm not what you would call a horse person or a horse people. I think Sonny is one, and I'm not, yes. And I'm not one, but I love him. So if there is an in-between, it would be me.
I don't know. They're big. I love the Budweiser with Clydesdales. That's just like, and then I cheat. So I went to, what is it where you drink a bunch? The German Oktoberfest.
Yes, yeah.
And we went to see a horse race. It was at I'm just going to say the Churchill Downs, but I don't have that much money and I'm not that cool. It was at our local one. What's the local racetrack?
Santa Anita?
maybe Santa Anita. So
Are you talking about Hollywood?
I think it was, I don't know, it was one of them. It was the only time I've been in the whole center area. They turned it into where you can drink whatever you want and you could eat whatever you want. And it was really good. And we sat at the finish line, and we, my girlfriend and I, we spent $1 per race just to say we bet on a horse. And when you see them up front, those racing horses, what an animal. I mean, what a beautiful thing. And they're so much bigger than my friend's horses in the backyard. I just couldn't believe, and the muscles and everything. What a fantastic thing.
Yeah. And they look puny compared to the real big ones, the Clydesdales.
The Clydesdale, I've seen it. As a kid, we'd go see the Rose Parade. And so you see them, and then it's
like 10 feet high at the shoulder.
Yeah, you're like, who's the guy with the ladder to help them get up on this?
I know. I mean, they're remarkable.
Have you handled a Clydesdale, Sonny?
Me? No, but I have the same species of horse. Clydesdales are known as draft horses. Draft being like something that pulls.
Yes.
Like a draft beer or whatever. And so a draft horse, they've got a whole bunch of different breeds. And I have 2 Percherons, what they called. And they're from, I believe they originated in like Holland, Belgium, France. So I have Charlotte and Gus, and they are just as big as any Clydesdale. I've only got 2 out of the 27 that I take care of. Ooh. And but they're totally lovable.
So how much food do they eat a day? It has to be a huge amount.
I'm sorry. They weigh anyway.
No, food. How much do they eat a day?
3 times as much as anybody else. And they go 1,800 to 2,200 pounds. The average horse is 1,000 to 1,200. Somewhere in there.
So they're almost twice as heavy. They're twice as heavy.
I'm sorry.
And so in essence, they're just about twice as heavy.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. And they're not twice as tall, but at least half as tall. I mean, half again as tall. Yeah, they're massive. But they're gentle giants. They're like totally mellow. It's so funny. Just like humans, it's the little guy that always wants to take a pop at you, the Napoleon guy. You know what I mean? Yeah, with horses, it's the same way. It's always the little guy that's got the attitude. And the real big, heavy duty ones are just totally mellow and cool.
Yeah, they got no reason to be aggressive. Same thing with dogs. You see it in dogs.
Yeah.
Dogs are the ones who want to pick fights with Great Danes.
And that's the only one I ever got bit by, a little poodle. It nipped me. It hurt too, man, little bastard. I should have left him in the street.
I had a Springer. Some guy came over to work on our backyard, and he had what was called a Great White Pyrenees. And this is a gigantic dog, just
beautiful,
huge. Yes, and white and 200 pounds, I would say, And I had the Springer Spaniel, and this dog was standing in the backyard like this. And the Springer Spaniel, who was a female and was absolutely captivated by this massive male dog. She was just thrilled. She couldn't stop running around in circles. And she ran directly underneath this dog, right? And the dog, it was this situation. She goes, wham, and the dog goes.
It's like a roadie being on stage. We're just.
It was like.
Exactly,
3 seconds after she had already gone underneath him, he went,
I was like,
what was that?
What was that? That's how the big horses are. The little pony will give a kick, and the big horse says, what was that?
Yeah. If you ever hit
people. How Three Dog Night how Three Dog Night got their name? And I know what a Three Dog Night is, but I read here that the origins of the Three Dog Night name, and it was June Fairchild, Danny Hutton's girlfriend, made it up. But this guy named Vic Van Dyke Parks, who was an arranger at Warner Brothers, says it ain't true. He made it up. Have you ever heard anything in between?
I don't know who suggested it. I am familiar with what I have been told is the the genesis of the name, what it means. Three Dog Night being an Aborigine term for measuring various degrees of cold. But when you're outside, you're hunting, and a one dog night is a night where you needed to sleep with a dog to stay warm. A two dog night, you needed a dog on each side. But if it was a three dog night, that was super cold. You needed a dog on either side and a dog on top of you to stay warm. And so a three dog night is a euphemism for a very, very, very cold night.
That's what I always heard. And that's what I always believed since the time I was like 14. That was the lure anyway.
That's as close as I've ever come to hearing about it. It's
I always believed. Yep.
Yeah. It makes all the sense in the world to me. I don't know who heard about the word Three Dog Night and decided to be a good name for the band. I don't know about that, but I do know that it came from the Aborigine term.
Yeah,
so none of them were from Australia, right?
Huh?
None of the original guys were from Australia.
Oh no. No, Danny was born in Ireland.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's Irish.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, yes, he is.
Wow, I did not know that.
You're where are you from originally, David?
I was born in Evanston, Illinois, and moved to Minnesota for a few years while my father was in the service.
15 dog night. 15 dog.
Yeah.
Minnesota, I was 2 years old, and I had a friend that lived 3 houses down. And I would walk out my door, and I would count the sidewalks because the snow was higher than my head. I was walking through tunnels, not tunnels, but, canyons of snow. When I walked to Bobby Ridland's house, what I had to do was, here's the first sidewalk, that's the Clarks. Here's the second sidewalk, that's the Tholans. This is the third sidewalk, here's the Ridlands. And that would be the one I'd go in, and I would be right. But I would have to count the sidewalks because I couldn't see the houses. The snow was over my head,
right.
And so Minneapolis back in those days was serious snow.
Yeah, I grew up in New England, and it was the same deal.
Yeah.
The snow was so high at the end of your driveway that you could barely peek out to see if somebody was coming. Yeah. Because 10 feet of snow at the end of your driveway. Yeah. And 10 dog night for sure.
10 dog night. We're setting all standard. You count the horses with the hands. You count the boneless with the doggies. So,
Joel, are you a California guy?
Actually, I was born in England, so the pretty cool too. Yeah, I was born in Cambridge, England, but my parents moved here when I was a little guy to LA, and so I traveled a lot, and then I toured, but outside of that, LA, and I like it here. I'm comfortable here. Honestly, some of the best bars I've ever been to were in Boston. I had an awesome time at that.
Yeah, well, we have the corner on that one.
Yeah, you do, man. There's so much fun. You don't talk shit about Ireland and the IRA, and don't talk anything about sports. You're good to go.
No, don't.
You have a wonderful time.
Yeah. My favorite line from Spinal Tap is when the manager tells them that the Boston gigs are canceled, but don't worry about it. It's not a college town.
Yeah.
I don't remember that. That was pretty good. I was doing NSYNC, a video for NSYNC, and one of the guys in the band had busted his leg, so he was just sitting there with me. And we were doing the music video, so it was like 2 weeks of listening to the same song over again. And the guy had broken his leg. We went through the crafty table with the M&M, and we pulled out all the color that we wanted. And, it takes a while. It's like, it's a human gig there. So we were proud of ourselves. I think we felt quite accomplished in our feat. So why did mom and dad leave Illinois, or did you leave as an adult?
Well, what happened was we moved back to Chicago when I was 5. And I lived in Chicago through high school, then went to college in Ohio. And after I got out of college, I stayed in Ohio. My family, in the meantime, moved to California. Oh. And that had nothing to do with me. I was an adult. I was out of the house by then. And I was married and living in Ohio. And we stayed in Ohio until the band that I was in Ohio, which was a regional band that was really very good. We played all over several states. But the band broke up on one night. It was a very stupid reason. It was a snowstorm, and it was a tough drive. We had to drive from Delaware, Ohio, to Oxford, Ohio, which was about 60 miles, and it was coming down pretty hard. And the 3 guys who needed the money made it. And the 3 guys who didn't need the money said, "No, it's too hard," and turned around and went home. And we, the 3 of us who needed the money at the club, were very offended, as young, drug-using, overly dramatic people of 21 can get. And the band broke up. And that's when Sarah and I came out to California. We've been here ever since.
What was your band name?
The band was named Skyjack in Ohio. It was called, first it was Sweeney and then Skyjack, but that was way back. That was back later.
You were playing keys, or you were playing?
I was playing keys then, yeah, not guitar.
So you learned, I might be wrong here, but I think the piano that you have, the piano in your house came from a musician, like a famous musician, right?
Dewey Terry from Don and Dewey.
Oh, really?
Yes,
pretty awesome.
It was just one of those things where he made up his mind. We had 2 kids. We had 2 little kids, and they were both playing on our electric keyboards. We would sit them down and let them play and let them do that. And Dewey, who Alicia was, and I both were playing with at the time, mostly Alicia, they would do shows, and Don would be pulled in from wherever he happened to be. No. It was Dewey who was difficult to find. Don was always around, and it was Pie. Shoot. No, well, I may be getting the names wrong. It's a long time ago, but it was Dewey Terry who had the piano in his garage, and he said, kids can't do what they need to do on electric equipment. They have to be too careful. They can't play on it. They can't you guys have got to have a piano. You have to have an acoustic piano. And he had this acoustic piano in his garage. It was in great shape. And it had paint blotches all over it, and it didn't look like anything, but we got rid of that, and set it up in the living room. And the kids learned how to play on that piano. That was it. After that, they had a piano that they could sit down and play on. And we didn't have to, don't do that. Don't push that button, And we didn't have to be there. They could play whenever they wanted to. And it was really a wonderful gift. And it was basically a gift to the kids. He said, I have this piano. You can't teach kids to play piano on electric instruments. They can't learn. There's too many things they can't do. There's too many things you can't let them do. You can't let them fuck around. They need to be able to fuck around, and so he gave us a piano that they could fuck around on. And he was absolutely right.
And I'm trying to, so we spent Dave and I spent a bit of time together. So I spent time at the house, and then you sold the piano, right? To Bonnie?
No.
You know what I'm talking about? Bonnie Raitt? Is that you?
No, that wasn't me.
Maybe.
No, the piano's sitting right over there. I still write on it all the time.
Somebody sold it. There was a great Bonnie Raitt story that I maybe it wasn't. I guess it wasn't you. All right.
Was it Carole Kaye?
Well, I mean, that's amazing too. But no, somebody was.
I gave a Carole Kaye amp to John Stevenson because he was moving to Nashville, and so just a goodbye present. I had this bass amp that had Carole Kaye stenciled on it, and for him it meant so much more than it did to me.
Yeah,
he was a bass player. I knew who Carole Kaye was, and I admire her work. But for a bass player to have a Carole Kaye amp,
yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Absolutely thrilled.
Carole Kaye would be awesome.
And so, anyway.
Okay, all right. So you were, what got you into music? Was it your parents, or I think you have a sister? I think.
I have a sister and a brother, but it was nobody was in favor of me getting into music.
Really?
Not professionally. They thought they started me taking piano lessons because they went to a party, and one of the people at the party could play the piano, and he was so much the center of attention, and everybody enjoyed what he played so much. They thought the playing piano would be a good thing to be able to do at a party. And they gave me piano lessons so that I would be able to play piano at parties and entertain people and be popular, and things of that nature. They did not expect me to become a professional musician.
Yeah.
My father basically considered to be a frivolous and dissipated way to make a living. He said, well, what he would say was, it's a lousy life. He said, there are drug addicts all around. You never know when you're going to get paid, when you're going to work. You work in these bars and dives and sleazy places. And of course, everything he said was true.
You're like, man.
But if you got to do it, you got to do it, And for me, there was nothing that was even close to giving me both the joy and the feeling that I actually knew what I was fucking doing than playing music.
What did your dad do for a living?
My father was in advertising.
Oh, okay.
He was very successful. He was a great singer, but he never, he would sing with us. He loved to sing with us in family things and stuff like that. He had a gorgeous voice, and he was really good looking. He could have pursued that, but it had never even crossed his mind. Never even crossed his mind. It was not something that you did. One did, unless you were a frivolous and dissipated sort of individual.
So did he
changed his mind over time?
So that's it. Did he accept it as you began to earn a living doing it, or? Well,
he accepted it when he realized that I was making a living, and that I was playing stuff that he enjoyed, and that I was, that I wasn't just messing around, that I was really working at it, and that I was pursuing it with all dispatch, and getting as good as I could and taking it seriously and not messing around. I wasn't doing it because I didn't want to work. I was working my ass off.
Yeah, that it was
work. Yeah, it wasn't the question of when are you going to get a real job. He knew I was working.
Yeah,
he knew I was working. And so he was pleased as punch and all puffed up with pride by the end when I was doing things like the Association and Delaney and Three Dog Night and stuff like that. That he didn't live to see Three Dog Night, unfortunately. My mother did.
That's cool.
Yes, she did. She said I had been in lots of bands. I sang some leads in the Association. But
the Association, I got to tell you, the Association changed my life as a teenager.
Oh yeah,
my life, like so many people.
I learned a lot in that group. I learned a lot of stuff, and we're friends to this day. Larry Brown, the guitar player, is a friend to this day. Jim Yester Del Ramos, all those guys, I still know them.
Wow.
The same would be true of the Stone Canyon Band if they were around,
Oh, right. Forgot about that.
which was, that was we don't need to get into that,
What about you, Sonny? What did your parents do for work?
My parents? Oh,
Yeah.
my mother was the daughter of a Sicilian immigrant and a second-generation Irish factory worker in Boston. So it's the Catholic scene. Irish Italian is very common there in Boston. My dad was Irish both sides, otherwise known as a Mick in the common vernacular of the 1930s. He had 6 sisters and 1 brother. His father was a brick mason. They lived one step ahead of the landlord, moved constantly, never had enough to eat, had a windbreaker in the winter, and not much else in Boston itself. Real depression, poverty. My mother was a little more fortunate. She was an only child. And my grandfather, being Sicilian, always had steady work, if you know what I mean. Yeah. They struck out together out of the Boston inner city to the suburbs. In 1959, they bought a home after my dad went to Korea and lost an eye. They bought a home on the GI Bill for $5,000. And surprisingly enough, they bought it at 7% interest. I just refinanced my house for 2.75.
Amazing.
6 years later. Okay. So yeah, crazy. Dad went to work for the VA, worked himself up from a janitor to like running the whole sterilization unit of a VA hospital in Boston. He got lymphoma when he was 35. He was dead at 39. I was 13. My mom kind of never got over it. And 10 years later, she kind of offed herself. And when I was like maybe 22, something like that. So they went from the American dream to the American disaster in no time flat. And by the time I was 25, I was in California. And I was like, well, if I make it to 30, if I make it to 40, we're just going to have a good time and make some music. And that was kind of my ethos throughout, my entire first years being here, and Crazy Horse was a perfect fit. I got to tell you, it really was. So, everybody's got something right in their background. And so that was mine. And I was fortunate enough that my girlfriend, her brother had moved here to Thousand Oaks in Ventura County and kept saying to her, come on out, come on out, come on out. And I was in a duo at the time, and we were playing the best clubs in Boston and we were making money. I was a full-time musician, which I was really, proud of, paying the rent with music. And it got to the point, though, where she told me, where are you going to go from here? There was nowhere to go. There was New York or LA. Her brother was in LA, and we were like, all right, let's go. I showed up with, I think $100 in my pocket. We stayed with her brother for 6 months and got some gigs, met the guys from Crazy Horse serendipitously, just like through some friends. And, I just kept following my nose all the way down the line.
That's cool.
In a nutshell, that's it.
That's what we all do. Say, when you come here not knowing somebody, you just knock around until you
something sticks.
Certain doors.
Did you know people here? You're in the music. I mean, when you came here, David?
No, I didn't know a soul. My parents were here. My sister was here. She was an actress. She had nothing to do with music. I started off going to the Musicians Union and looking on the board for bands that were looking for a piano player.
Same here.
And I found a band that was looking for a piano player, and I auditioned, and I got the gig, and that was my first band. And we played around. Back then, I was in a 1-bedroom apartment with a swimming pool and a dishwasher and real nice living room with a stereotypical shag rug for $154 a month. You know?
You remember, David, do you remember the Music Connection, the newspaper?
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, that's where you went every week to see who's doing what. I needed a bass player or somebody else that was looking for something, you know, along the lines that I was doing. It was the old school Craigslist, I guess you might say.
Yeah. Well, there was a board at the union.
Oh, yeah, right. At the union.
A big board with actual notes picked up. And the first one that I pulled worked out, you know, so that was my band for a while. And then the apartment that I was living in, the guy next door, this is so weird because it was a chance occurrence. The guy next door had nothing to do with music. He was a stonemason, you know, a big old powerful guy, but he liked music. And he said, you know, this guy upstairs in 321, I've heard he plays really, really, really good drums. I've heard that he's really good on drums. And you guys should hear each other. And so one day Larry Bros bought Al Lichtenstein, which was his name, down to meet me. And I played some piano. And he went up and got some drums, just a little bit of drums to play along. And holy shit, man, he was every bit as good as Larry Bros said he was. You know, he was by far the most creative drummer that I'd ever played with while simultaneously copying the most poppin' groove, you know, and it was wonderful. And so he knew a bass player named Bob Gross and a guitar player named Peter Climbs. And that was us. That was my first real original band in Los Angeles, and it was called Jake. And I was in Jake until Jim Yester from the association, who had known Peter since they were both children, called Peter Climbs and said, I'm looking for a piano player that can sing second tenor. And Peter said, we got one in our band, you ought to use Dave. And Jim called me, and that's where it started. It started because Larry Bros heard me play guitar one day as he was walking by. If he hadn't heard that, if he hadn't known, if I hadn't been introduced to Alan, none of it would have happened.
It's all serendipity. It's not these days, but back then.
Things happened by a quarter inch. Things happen. Let me just tell you one more story real quick. Sure. I was playing in a band called the Backstreet Band at JR's Cowboy Palace in Chatsworth. You may be familiar with it. But
I know it.
We had an excellent bass player named John. And he was also an excellent drinker. You know, he drank a lot. You know, like if I remember one time when he was already drunk and he'd ordered a pitcher of beer. The pitcher was sitting right there in front of him. And the waitress finally said, okay, 2:00. Whether you're done or not, everybody's got to go. He picked up that pitcher already wasted and killed it.
Yeah, paid for it.
Big draft. You know, and so but anyway, what happened?
Boston, Sonny, Boston.
Irish, I'm a Mick. What can I tell you? Take my beer.
We were setting up one night, and it was talent night at JR's Cowboy Palace, which was like talent night at the Palomino Club. You know, where they would have people come up and sing, and the audience would vote, and there was a cash prize for first place and second place. You know how it works. And so we were setting up, and at JR's, what we usually did was play a set first, and then we would back up whoever wanted to, because it wasn't as well known, and it wasn't as big as Palomino. Instead of there being 30 or 35 people, there were ordinarily 6 or 7, you know. But John, although the gig had not yet started, was already hammered. And I made a terrible mistake because it was only going to be for a second while I plugged in my sustain pedal underneath. I set my Coca-Cola on top of my DX7 that was sitting there and went to plug the thing in. And as I did, John Stevens turned around with his bass, and the tip of his tuning peg caught the top 1/4 inch. He almost missed it, but he caught the top 1/4 inch and dumped the whole thing onto the DX7.
On the DX7, shit.
Which made a few squawking noises and emitted a few puffs of smoke and quit.
I bet.
And so I turned to the other guys in the band and said, well, we're screwed. I don't have a keyboard. I don't have a keyboard to play with. You guys are going to have to, I don't know what we're going to do. You guys are going to have to do it yourselves. I guess. I don't know. You know, and then this very cute little blonde girl that I had seen before in the one time in my life at the Palomino 2 days before at that
Palomino.
At that talent contest, she had sung What a Man Loves a Woman and won the Palomino contest. And there she was again at JR. She just got there trying to earn rent money. And she came up and she said, you know, I have a DX7 at home that's only 10 minutes from here. My roommate Janet's right there. She could probably be here in 10 minutes. Would you like to have me call her? I said, that's cool. Would I like that? That would save our ass. You know, please, if you could, if that's a pot. Sure enough, 10 minutes later, Janet walked in with a DX7 that was so identical to mine that even the settings were the same. The same sounds were on the same numbers. You know, it was like playing the same instrument. And this girl said, you just hang on to that for a while because I got an M1 workstation at home. I don't need this right now. So when you are all set again, you just let me know. And so I kept it for a couple of weeks and I took it back and she played me a tape of her singing. And I said, God, I like the way you're singing. And we started calling each other for sessions. And when my wife and I broke up, I started seeing this girl socially, and she has now been my wife for 30 years.
Oh, what a great story. That's neat.
Oh, because John hit the top of my Coca-Cola glass by that much.
You still drinking Coca-Cola?
No, I can't. I don't drink soft drinks anymore because I'm afraid I'll get type 2 diabetes.
Okay.
You know, my brother has it.
Oh.
You know, my father got it. You know, it's, and I've always been a sugar freak all my life. You know, and I have changed my diet radically in the last. Well, I had. This is the perfect time to do it. There was nothing else going on. You know, if it turned out to be something that I found incapacitating or uncomfortable, then I had plenty of time to change back. I didn't have to try to do a show all fucked up, right?
Yeah.
So this is the perfect time to try it. And what I did was went to a plant-based diet. And I'm going to tell you, I went from taking between 6 and 10 Advils a day to not having to take an Advil for months. I haven't needed an Advil for months. That is a true story.
That's great, man.
It's an awesome story. Sorry to have back in you guys. My daughter's phone's battery is dying. Okay. I'm trying to get you up on the PC in here. Okay. So if I can come back, I will.
Yeah, you just click the link and you come back.
Yeah. Plug in your daughter. Does your daughter's phone plug in?
I'm sorry?
Can't you just plug your daughter's phone in?
No, I'm upstairs in the studio. Her charger is down there and it's like 0 right now. It's going to take a few minutes to charge it up. So I'm leaving, but I'm going to try to get back as quick as I can. Okay?
Okay, cool.
David, your stories are awesome, man. I want to come back. So
all right, good to talk.
Bear with me.
We'll tell boring ones until you come back. So what was your first nationwide tour? Was it the association or?
Association. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That was my first name group.
That was the first name group. And then how did, so Rick Nelson must have been back then or no?
Rick Nelson started in 1980. I was out of the association for about a year. and doing a band with Larry Brown in the association, which still exists in sort of ephemeral form. You know, Larry and I still write together. We still are best of friends. And, but I was out of the association for about a year and a half before I joined the Stone Canyon Band. And I joined the Stone Canyon Band in 1980, and I was in it until the middle of 1984. But I was starting to work for Mike Post, and I was making so much money in town.
Yeah, with the great Who's the Boss thing, man. That's awesome. Actually, that's before. When Who's the Boss is, the early 90s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yes, I think so.
Actually, did Mike Post do Who's the Boss or no? I don't think he did.
No, John Wolfe did that.
Yeah, all right.
Jonathan Wolfe. And Mike Post did Hardcastle McCormick. He did Believe It or Not, which I sang backgrounds on with Joey. And I remember...
You're Walking on Air, that song?
Greatest American Hero, yeah.
Oh, yeah, man, that's great. Now I can totally hear your voice when you say that. I could totally...
I wasn't singing lead on that.
Well, I can hear in the background. You know, one of the guys like Michael McDonald, Christopher Cross. Never heard Michael McDonald until I knew he was on it. Now you hear Michael McDonald every time you listen to the songs.
Yes. Well, Michael McDonald is great.
Oh,
we were listening to, we were watching Leaving Las Vegas. Have you seen that movie?
Yeah, it's heavy.
Yeah, well, but before it gets terribly heavy, Michael McDonald sings this gorgeous version of Lonely Teardrops in the movie.
Oh, I don't remember that. And what
they're pulling around to the gas station and just getting there. And he does it. It's the only one that I like as much as the original.
I'll have to check that out. You know, I was recently, they asked Paul McCartney, what's your favorite cover of, I think it was Yesterday, you know, and he asked, he said, get me a list of a bunch of guys that sang it. And, you know, it's everybody. And so he picked his top three was Elvis Presley, Marvin Gaye. It was his favorite, he thinks. And the third one was Frank Sinatra. But when you hear Marvin Gaye sing Yesterday, which I never had, it was so fantastic. You know, when you really put your own spin on it. Oh, fantastic. Oh, here's something.
I have not heard that.
I didn't know he had sang it. So I did a little look-see, and it's really, really good. So
I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, you got to check it out.
But Michael McDonald singing Lonely Teardrops is on YouTube. All you have to do is type in Google Michael McDonald Lonely Teardrops and it'll be there.
I'll give it a go. You know, one of my favorites is totally different, but so Charlton Heston narrates The Old Man and the Sea, and that you can find on YouTube, and that's amazing. You know, not political stuff, but his voice reading that. Woo! On fire. Fantastic.
Who was the actor in that?
Oh, and
was it Anthony Quinn?
I think so. I think you're right.
I think it was Anthony Quinn.
Yeah, I think it is. I'm pretty sure you're right.
Because there's only one actor. There's only one actor in the whole damn movie. It's the boat and the actor and the fish.
You know what? I never saw the film. I read the book, and then I listened to the audiobook with him because someone else had told me, and I just you get goosebumps. It's so fantastic. It's what a voice, that guy. Oh man.
Well, if you have not seen the movie, you should see the movie.
Yeah, I should. I really should. I have to do that. I have to give it.
That is a classic movie. That's a classic movie. And now I'm thinking it might not be Anthony Quinn. It might be Spencer Tracy.
We could cheat. Let's see. I hate to be wrong. All right. So we're looking up Old Man
and the Sea movie.
In the Sea movie. Ernest Hemingway. That part we know.
Yes.
And this fellow here looks like Spencer Tracy. We're wrong. Yeah, we're wrong.
It is Spencer Tracy.
It is. It's Spencer Tracy. Yeah. Yeah. Hold on, Marvin. Yeah. Oh, well. What do I say? I know music a little bit better. I don't know. Either way, with Spencer Tracy or Anthony Quinn, it's still
We're right. We said Spencer Tracy.
But did we?
Yes.
I'm out of it. You know, I got recently, I do a lot of memorabilia now. And I've got this paper clip. And it was given, so there's a movie called The Desk Set. Or I think it's just called Desk Set, actually. And it's with Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn. And she made this silver paper clip, and in the middle is this gold thing, and it says to the director of the movie, and from her name in the movie, who's the actress the performer she played, and she gave it to him as a thank you gift for putting her in the film. And it's a really neat thing. I like it. It's this oversized paper clip. These little things are so cool. Old Hollywood had so much charm all the way down to all the details of it. I really. So speaking of charm, I don't want to miss out on how you met Delaney, because Delaney Bramlett was one of my favorite people I ever met, and a fantastic storyteller and a brilliant musician. So how did you come across paths?
That was when I was in the Stone Canyon Band. Jake, which consisted of Bob Gross, Alice Justine, and Peter Climbs, had become Delaney's backup band.
Oh.
And I was doing other things, you know, and Delaney would call keyboard players in, you know, and to play. And then one day he was doing a thing that needed piano and vocals. And so I came in and played the piano part and then sang the vocal part. And Bob Gross said, Delaney turned to him and said, "Who is that?" And Bob said, "That's Dave Morgan." And Delaney said, I want him in the band. You know, and that was how it started, from one session.
So this is in 1980, roughly?
No, later than that. I was in Stone Canyon Band until 85.
85, okay, so a couple years later. Can you hear us, Sonny?
Huh?
He's trying to log back, but...
I don't know. Can you hear me?
Okay, we hear you. Yeah, you're on.
Yeah.
Shit, really?
We're back.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, we got you. So with Delaney, so the few things so I go to his house, and I have no idea about anything. And he just loved to tell so the first thing, do you remember the sweet tea that his mom would make?
Oh, yes.
We were speaking of Sugar Rush. That was the greatest thing I ever had in my life.
Grandma was the baddest.
Dude, the sweet tea was so good. And then she would just come over. She would like keep making it. It was like an endless supply of sweet tea at Delaney's house.
There was an endless supply of everything at Delaney's house. You know, there really was. There really was. Mama, I remember Mama trying to keep up with Sam. And Sam, my son Sam, when Sam was 3, and I'd see Sam go dashing across the yard, and I'd see Mama limping after him, you know, just going as fast as she could, you know, and always making sure that he was all right. But I mean, she did not spare herself.
Do you think that's why Delaney, because Delaney was tough as nails when he was younger. I know he was. He told me all these stories. He'd get in fights like all the time, he said.
Yeah, he was one of those guys who fought for fun.
Yeah.
You know, there are guys like that. You know, he would, and he was one of them. You know, and I have never been one of them. I've never liked it. I've never enjoyed it, you know. And it's not... In fact, I hate it so much that it's really not a good idea to start. There's an old saying, never corner a coward, right? You know, don't scare me. Don't scare me, man, because I'll just, you know. Unleash, yeah. And I don't like it. I just don't like it. But some guys do. Some guys think there's nothing more fun than going out and getting punched in the nose and punched in the eye and knocked out and knock their teeth out, knock somebody else's teeth out.
He loved it.
For each his own. To each his own. He did.
You know, some of the stuff he said, I know it's not totally accurate, but it sure was fun to listen to. So, you know, he had mentioned he knew Charlie Manson. Did you ever hear anything about that? Do you remember that?
He never mentioned that guy.
Yeah.
He wasn't alone with that one. Crazy Horse hung out with Charlie Manson, so Neil Young.
Really?
Charlie Manson was an influential kind of guy, not only with his little crew up there in Chatsworth, but he actually was like a Hollywood kind of staple. All the parties.
Really?
Yeah. He hung out with Crazy Horse for a while, and his entire ethos, or whatever you want to call it, was based on the fact that he got turned down by the record. Mo Austin turned him down. Said no, and he hung with the guys from Crazy Horse and a bunch of other people from that whole entire Topanga camp or Laurel Canyon camp for a little bit, and he was like an up and coming songwriter guy, but he wasn't good enough, and he couldn't get a deal, and that's why he turned into Charlie Manson.
Yeah, and Delaney had said that he'd like put blood on the wall in his house. He's like, I kicked the shit out of that little guy. I'm like, But my favorite one with him, this is with Susan, and so she's like, so he's gonna want you to go to the liquor store and buy him a bottle of wine, and you have to tell him no. Then he's gonna tell you that he's gonna kick your ass if you don't get him a bottle of wine, and that's when you say yes. So I'm like, well, okay. So then we get in the car. I'm like, he's like, we're going to the liquor store. I'm like, I'm supposed to tell you no, and then you're gonna say yes. So I'm like, so we'll just go to the liquor store. So we go to the liquor store, and I buy him a bottle of the cheap shit. He wanted this cheap garbage stuff. It wasn't nice. It was crap. And then we get to the studio. He drinks the whole thing like so fast, man. I think it was because he was nervous, but I don't know. You might know better. You knew him good, but he just downed this thing. And we get there, and I got some pretty good musicians in the room, and he was just plastered. I don't know. He was a mess. And they're like, what, who is this guy? Whatever. I'm like, this guy's the shit. You have no idea. I don't know. I guess I should have said no longer. But I put him together with Dizzy from Guns N' Roses to write a song. And that was cool because he's like, I don't know who they are. And Sue's like, it's a big deal. You take this seriously. And watching the two of them put the song together was very, very cool because he was fast. Once he had that lyric down, it was just boom. They blew out the song, and it was so cool.
We wrote dozens of songs.
Yeah, I remember. I used one or two of them. I can't remember now, but you let me is probably a better way to put it.
We some of the best ones are What Do You Do About the Blues? Not the Kind of Thing You Can Ignore. Brown Paper Bag. There's just a lot of good ones.
He played this song for me once, and it was The Bitch Threw My Records in the Rain. And he's playing the song, and it sounds all right. Do you know what this song is, David? Have you heard this before?
Yeah.
It was good, right? I'm liking it. And then Susan comes out, and she's yelling at him, don't play that damn song. And it's about Bonnie getting a big fight, and she took all his records and she left him on the front lawn, and she ruined his records. So she gets so mad, quit playing that song. It was good though. It was good. Actually, it reminds me, that's the reason. So Sonny, so the song in the film, The Still Life, the song you did, David had a song in the film too, which honestly I didn't think about until this now. So
that's interesting.
There's your connection, other than my three dogs making one horse analogy. So,
no, I'm surprised that David and I didn't bump into each other at some point.
I wouldn't be surprised if you guys did, and you forgot. I mean, Sonny,
we just did. We just did.
Yeah,
to each other.
That's right.
At this point.
So when I was at your house, I think we were hanging out a lot in the mid 2000s, and you were having not to get into it too much, you were having a hard time. You were looking for a gig, I guess is the best way to bet. And you wrote some fantastic songs in that time, man. I don't remember the name of one of them, but it was really, really amazing. And it was just a song about struggling. I don't know if you would know what it is, but
Catch Me When I'm Down?
I think so. What is it?
Catch Me When I'm Down, the one about the homeless guy.
I think that's it. We're talking about 2006-ish, maybe.
Yeah.
God, it was so good. And yeah, you were having a hard time.
So I was doing sessions and just, you know, we were getting by, but we were in a really bad mortgage situation with the band that was trying to take our house away from us.
Thank God you worked that out.
A really bad loan, promising us that if we made all the payments on time for a year, they would refinance it to a loan that was current. Every year, they found a reason not to, and so we were paying $3,500 a month for our mortgage, you know, and until I finally said, okay, I'm not going to give you any more money until you do what you said you were going to do. We've made all our payments on time for 3 years. We haven't missed one. You made us a promise. I'm not paying you anymore. And they immediately began trying to throw us out, you know, and we just did one thing after another to block it. And finally applying for a loan modification. And June Slayton helped us with that, who just fell out of the sky. And when we had nothing left, you know, she said, okay, what you have to do is declare bankruptcy. You don't have to go through with it. You just declare it. That stops everything for 30 days. Do that first. Then while you're doing that, we apply for a loan modification. After the loan modification is applied for, they cannot take your house away until it has been considered and accepted or rejected, which usually takes months. So we did all that, and they were calling us all the time, you know, just harassing us. It was Indy Bank, you know, and finally, we came home with no warning. There was a note on our door on a Friday night saying your house is going to be auctioned off at the courthouse steps at 9 o'clock on Monday in Aurora. And I was sitting there. We had no time. Nothing was open. There was no time to do anything. Nobody to call, nothing to do. They were going to sell it on Monday. And I was sitting there thinking about 4 dogs, 4 kids, 30 years worth of stuff. Got to go somewhere that will take 4 kids and 4 dogs and 30 years worth of stuff from a guy who just got evicted for non-payment. Doesn't look good. And I turned to Alicia, who was sitting on the sofa next to me, and she'd seen the note too. She knew exactly what position we were in. And I turned to her and I was about to say, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I got nothing. I don't know what we're gonna do. I'm sorry. I don't know. And before I could say that, she turned to me and said something so outlandish to me that at first it didn't register. I didn't understand. It was gibberish. You know, she turned to me and she said, I'm so happy, honey. I said, what? She said, I love you. I love being married to you. I'm so happy. And at that minute, I went from we're fucked to fuck them motherfuckers. They're going to hear from me. They're going to goddamn remember me. I'll tell you that right now. And I went down. I went down to the courthouse stairs in Norwalk. And I went to the lady who had the list of houses that were being sold off. And I said, you see this house right here? You need to tell whoever bids on that house that they're bidding on a hornet's nest because the current owner considers it stolen from him and will not leave. They're going to have to force me out. And all kinds of things can happen when you force somebody out. I'm not leaving, period. You know, tell them that. If you don't tell them that, I will. And she looked up at me, and I don't know whether she saw something she didn't like or saw something she did, or both. But she took a Sharpie and she drew a line through. And she said, they have 40 days before they can do this again. You start moving. And for all I know, she lost her job for that. I don't know. I don't know what happened, but she did it. And I went home and I said to June what had happened. And June said they weren't supposed to do that. They were considering a loan modification application. They weren't allowed to do that. They just tried to sneak it under the wire. So she said, well, let me call them. And she called them. And what they said was, well, in that 65-page loan application that he sent, there was one page that he neglected to sign. Therefore, technically, we never received a completed loan application. Therefore, we are entitled to do anything we want because we were not considering it because we never received it. And June called me back and said, okay, look, go through all of the thing, find the one you didn't sign it, and fax it to him. We went through the thing. They were all signed, every one of them. It was out and out fraud. It was plain and simple fraud. And when June called him back and said, we looked, and it's, those things happen, you know, I guess those kind of things.
Yeah, right.
And she said, it better not happen again, or we will sue your ass off, you know. And I started getting calls every day.
So was June as an attorney, or?
She was basically a real estate, a realtor, just a real smart one.
Yeah, savvy, man. Okay.
And very nice. And so then I started getting called every day about everything that I was going to have to do if I wanted to save any part of my house. Quick sale this, quick sale that. Yeah. And then we got a call. This is almost over. No, quick.
No, yeah, this is great.
Well, we got a call from a lady, obviously reading off a script. He said, I just want you to know that I'll be recording this for our records. I said, well, that'll be just fine because I'm recording it too for my records so that nothing I say can be taken out of context and used against me in a court of law should this come to that. And the lady said, I'm sorry, sir. I'm going to have to ask you not to record this conversation.
Of course.
Yeah. And I said, I'm sure you are going to have to ask me not to record this conversation, and I'm going to have to tell you that I'm going to record it anyway.
Yeah, right.
I don't care whether you like it or not. If this conversation is being recorded by me, I know that I can't record it without telling you and then use it against you, but I am telling you that, in fact, I'm recording myself telling you that I'm doing it. I had the same rights to do it that you do. I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And the lady said, well, then I can't talk to you. Y'all have to connect you with a supervisor. I said, great. Hook me up with somebody who's got the authority to blow their nose and the decency to make a fair deal, because that's all I want.
Just tell them, most people pay me to record stuff for them when they hear my voice.
I was just going to say, I know how to record, okay?
Yeah. You just hook me up with somebody. And she said, I'll wait for the supervisor. She put me on hold for 45 minutes, cut me off. Bang.
Of course they do.
Okay. 2 days later, I got a letter in the mail. Congratulations, your home modification loan has been approved. We always knew you could do it. We loved you. So you're one of our valued customers. We're going to bring your payment from $3,500 a month down to $1,200.
Oh, wow.
And that's what we're paying. A little more than that now, about 15, but it's not going to get higher than 15.
Of course.
So did you do an Irish jig that day? That must have been pretty.
They just eventually said, I know they did. They said, fuck this guy. Let's get some money out of him and move to somebody that we can bully a little easier.
And you know how many families throughout the U.S. weren't as savvy as you were or as tenacious as you were and lost their
houses just because they
2006 and 2010?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and can you imagine, or I guess it wouldn't be hard to find out how much more the house is worth now than it was then?
Oh, yeah. On top of they knew you had equity. They knew all of that.
They knew all of that.
I always tell my mortgage story like this. I was a self-employed musician. I was working 8 shows a week. It was 2004. And there was this 3 years after 9/11.
Right.
And when 9/11 happened, the economy fell apart completely, totally.
Right.
The banks went down to 0 interest. The Fed was giving money away at negative interest. Okay. And the banks were saying, if you're breathing, we'll give you a mortgage. This is what caused the housing, collapse in 2000. Because all these people who could not afford a mortgage went out and got a house.
Yeah.
Well, so did I. And my mortgage broker said, well, can you afford the monthly payment? And I looked at it and I said, probably not, but I'm going to say yeah. And I got the mortgage for this incredible house here in Moore Park, California, where I'm sitting right now. And I looked around me watching people, that couldn't make the payment. And my wife and I and my daughter went without just about everything else except paying the mortgage for a good 5 years until I could get refinanced. And then suddenly I had a, fairly, manageable payment. And we just hung on and hung on and hung on. And all those people lost their homes. They lost their homes because they couldn't make the payment. Well, I just did everything I could, 3 jobs, whatever it took. I was singing 8 days a week and I was a cowboy all day long. I was working 80, 85 hours a week to hang on to the place. Well, when the dust settled, I still had the place when everybody lost them. And here I sit today, on this incredible property, lucky. But when people ask me how this happened, I always say that the only reason I own a house is because of Osama bin Laden. Sorry, but it's true.
It's you really had to fight. You really had
it was my only
fighting would do any good, or if you gave up before you started, you were done. And so many people did. So many people thought they couldn't beat the banks. How do you beat a bank?
At that moment, but my only chance, and I saw it as my only chance. To
you guys think that
California, and I would do anything to hang on to it for my daughter's legacy, and I knew I wasn't going to lose, even though I did for the next 10 years. Everything dropped out, but now it's like, geez, lucky as I can possibly be, and sitting in the best place I have in probably my whole life, So it's wild, isn't it though? But you know what? The point of your story, David, is right to my heart. They will do anything they can to steal not only your property, but your dogs and your teeth along with it.
You remember that song, Why Are People Like That by Junior Wells?
Yeah.
They'll steal your dog and your clock, everything that you got.
Everything.
They'll take the shirt off your back. Why are people like that?
God damn right. Because they are. Because they can be. Yeah.
Did you think about moving out of state when all this was going down to be able to afford a place, or?
Mike Post suggested that I go to Nashville. He said I should be in Nashville. He said, for one thing, that house has been killing you for years. You know, and for another thing, you're a writer who writes the kind of songs they write down there. It's the place for you. I'm telling you, you should go there. And I went there, and he was right about a lot of it, but people were saying things. I had little kids, and people were saying things just real casually, like they were a fact, that I didn't want my kids taken to heart.
You know? I'm right there with you, brother. And that's why I don't live.
Saying things about other people, about other countries, saying it like it was just in the encyclopedia. And I didn't want my kids hearing that. I didn't, you know, when James was in second grade, his two best friends were Ahmed and Arturo. You know, you're not going to find that in Nashville, you know, and I decided not to go there for that reason, because of the social environment there. It was just, if I hadn't had kids, okay.
Yeah.
You know?
You know what?
I can shine that on, you know, I mean, I suppose, to a certain extent.
When it began for me, it was the same thing. Everybody's like, well, come back to Boston. Property's cheap. You can buy something on the Cape, you know. But unfortunately, as much as everybody thinks it's this liberal bastion of equality, when you get out of metropolitan Boston and you get into where I grew up on the South Shore, you know, the deeper Cape Cod areas, Western Mass, right. Southeast Mass, you might as well be in Nashville. Okay. Right. You might as well be. And I grew up that way. I grew up in a racist environment. I grew up in with parents that were Kennedy liberals, but were still completely racist. I never understood it in the 60s. And I just, from the youngest, I can remember like actually being socially conscious. I just remember, this is not right. You know, this is so freaking wrong. And so when I came to California in 1984 and saw that everybody, like my neighbor is Indian and my other neighbor is, you know, Chinese, and the neighbor across the street is from, you know, South Africa. And this, you know, I was like, wow, this is so freaking groovy. I got all this stuff going on instead of living with, you know, white Irish people who only hang out with the people they went to high school with, and everybody
whose attitudes can be somewhat benighted, you know, just like insular groups everywhere.
Yeah. So I always felt the same way. I considered going back for the money. I considered going back because, you know, I got a little bit of a rep and I could have made money, you know, touring and whatever. But
I was doing very well as a writer in Nashville. I did.
Raising my kids there? No way.
Were you submitting stuff through Randy's brother? Through was it Sharp Objects?
Yes, I was.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was Steve Sharp who said that house has been killing you for years.
Oh.
You know, now that I think of it, yeah, he wanted me to move there too. I was going back and forth. I was flying back and forth, staying at various places. You know, I'd come for a week and then go back. He said, you should just move here. But I couldn't let this house go. It meant too much to me. It's the only thing that we all have in common, all the kids, all of us. You know, we've all lived here. You know, it's the homestead, you know, and it's a big, nice place. You know, I don't want to lose it.
That's interesting. So you were saying you don't like a fight. If you remember, it wasn't very long ago. And then you're tough, bro. You're a very, very tough fellow. So out of interest, what musicians have you met, if any, that actually intimidated you?
Intimidated me?
Yeah, maybe. So where you're worried in that God, this guy's good. I know this guy's good. I know this guy's good. And so okay.
Well, you're talking about musical intimidation rather than...
Yeah, no, not a physical thing. I mean, more of...
I think we should talk physical intimidation, actually.
The physical thing? I can't picture David in a fist fight. I don't know, but I mean, not that you wouldn't, but I could see you as a wrestler because you're...
I was a wrestler in high school.
See, there you go. I could see that. What weight did you wrestle at? What weight class?
Well, when I was a sophomore in high school, I wrestled 95. I was called Spider.
Oh God, you're a little fella.
95.
I was not that little. I was just literally spider-like.
95.
Most of the guys I wrestled came up to here on me.
Yeah.
There was nobody that I couldn't reach back and switch on. I had such an advantage because of my height. But the problem was to maintain that weight at that. When I was, by the time the end of the season was, I had been living on Jell-O and oranges for months.
Yeah.
And I kind of ran out of strength toward the end of the season, and started to lose a couple of matches, toward the end. I just didn't have, by the end of the first period,
I was a terrible wrestler. I wrestled at 119, but I had on here Al Snow and Damian Sandow. They're professional wrestlers. And so it was kind of funny. I was very quiet. I didn't say anything. I'm going to tell them I wrestled in high school.
I wrestled at 119, Joel?
At 119 was my first, and then I was at 125. The problem is every guy in high school is at 125. There's a huge amount of people. I sucked.
Yeah, I wrestled in 7th grade. I was 168.
Whoa, big boy.
Yeah. By the time I was a junior, I was 112. As a sophomore, I was 95 by being the only one who could get down to 95, who was willing to starve myself down to 95.
So when did you have your growth spurt? Because you're 6 foot. You got to be 6 foot.
Yes, I am 6'1". And when I was a sophomore, I was probably 5'10" and 95. And,
168. So, I mean, you're in better shape now than you were then, Sonny.
I was 6 foot, 168. I haven't been 168 since, but that's another story.
Yeah. It's all that music playing in the bars. Give that guy a beer. Give that guy a beer. So you're when you got through this housing crisis, which I remember it, I was a kid, but I remember just the stress on you was just
I ground away one whole half of my mouth.
It was what?
Bruxism. I ground my teeth away on one half of my mouth, sleeping at night from the stress of it.
I remember it. I was heavy. So was the next gig that got you a bit of money, was it Three Dog Night, or was there some stuff in between?
Well, there was Little Richard things, and there was Messina, but the thing that.
So for Little Richard, though, he's a piano player. So what are you doing?
Playing synthesizer.
How cool is that? So he's playing the piano and you're playing the synthesizer.
Yes. And
fucking Little Richard. So when he passed away, I just, YouTube, you start watching one thing, next thing you know, it's 7 a.m. And I started watching Little Richard interviews, and he knew what he was on it, man. He was no dummy. He played guys like it was an instrument, he'd go through, and then, one of the things that was interesting was his persona. And he said where he wore a lot of makeup and everything, he stole it from somebody he worked with. He didn't steal it. The guy said to do it. And
it was and take to makeup. And it was a guy that he saw in a club.
Yep.
And the guy suggested it to him, and he used it ever since.
He suggested it because he could play for white people, and they wouldn't worry that he was trying to pick up on their girlfriend. And that would get you gigs and keep you fighting less. So that's why he did it. But then he would say other stuff, and he'd go all over. But it made him more interesting to go all over with different stuff. But I feel that that's probably accurate because it makes sense. Talking about intimidating. Can you imagine going into one of the places when he was a kid and they kill you?
Yeah. Well, he most of the really good ones make no attempt to be intimidating. It's not the good ones that are intimidating for the most part, or don't try to be. Ray Charles did a song of mine, one called "No, I Don't Believe That Anymore," and I recorded it for him at his piano, and he put it on a cassette. I just did a real quick version, and about 3 days later, I got a call at 7 o'clock in the morning from somebody who said he was Ray Charles, but sounded nothing like Ray Charles. Ray Charles in the studio was talking so fast that he stutters. No. This is what the old man want to hear now. I want you over there. And you, this is what I want to hear over here from New York. He talks like that. This guy was, this is Ray Charles. Somebody who sounded like he'd heard of Ray Charles, but just made up what he thought the guy would sound like. And I knew it wasn't Ray Charles. Yeah, I knew it wasn't Ray Charles. And so I got real rude. Started fucking around. Hey, Ray, how are you doing? It's always good to hear from you, Ray. What's happening? He said, you left me a cassette the other day, and I can't find the damn cassette. I wonder if you'd come down here and record it for me again. And I said, oh, you'd love that, wouldn't you, whoever you are? Had me drive all the way down there and make a fucking fool of myself. Who is this? You don't sound like fucking Ray Charles to me. And then in a tone of voice that was much more recognizable, the voice said, I had forgotten it was 7:30 in the morning. The voice said, well, I'm so sorry. I don't know what to tell you. And at that moment, I've been
Ray Charles.
I've been ranking out Ray Charles for the last 5 minutes.
These are the stories that are great.
And I said, okay, look, I'll be right down. And all the way down there, I'm going, well, that's the end of that. He's never got this song. I might as well just turn around and go home. I mean, this is stupid. I mean, I fucking, making fun of him and shit. God damn, what was I doing? And I got down there and he was standing at the board working things. And I said, hey, how are you doing? And he looked over, kind of with his ear like he does. He said, hey, man. And I said, listen, I need to tell you something about this call this morning. I've told a lot of people that you're cutting one of my songs, and I have a lot of wise guy friends. And so when you called me up and said that you were Ray Charles, and he interrupted me at that point, and he said, you said, sure you are. And I said, thank you. That's exactly what I did.
Oh, it's so awesome.
He understood perfectly. He said, so when you called me up and said you were Ray Charles, he jumped in and said, you said, sure you are. And he ended up recording the song. He recorded the song, the Just Between Us album. And
David, are you writing this stuff down?
Huh?
Are you writing this stuff down? You need to, buddy. These are awesome stories. Get it down on paper. Make your kids do it. Make your aunt do it. Make somebody do it.
It's so funny you say that, because the whole time we've been telling these stories, I'm wondering, even if your kids have heard these before,
doesn't matter.
It's so cool to hear you tell them with such enthusiasm that I'm thinking in my head, I wish I had my grandparents or, have do this for me. And I have a
stories like this with Ray Charles. Come on.
That's neat.
I've got one Ray Charles story. You want to hear it?
Sure.
All right. Here's my Ray Charles story. So a couple of buddies of mine, this one guy, he's plays with, everybody, Crosby and Nash and CPR and all these guys. His name is Jeff Pevar. You might have run into him. He's an awesome guitar player, highly sought after CSN guy. Anyway, he played with Ray Charles, and he left the gig. And this other buddy of mine that I played with, his name was Will Barkley. Yeah. He got the gig, right? So Will shows up at the gig, and he's supposed to wear this tuxedo at the show, but he's 5'6", and of course Jeff Pevar is like 6'2", and he ends up with Jeff Pevar's tuxedo for the show that. So he's got the pants rolled up and the sleeves rolled up by 6 inches, and he's got to walk out on stage like that, right? And he said he worked with him for almost 9 months on tour with Ray Charles, and he never knew his name. He said the only thing he would say to him during a show was, guitar player, watch my foot.
Yeah.
Like, don't bother with the drummer. Watch my foot, guitar player. Which was pretty awesome. But this guy, Will Barkley, actually was in a plane crash with Ray Charles. They crash landed on a runway and went off a cliff.
Oh.
In, I don't even know where, somewhere down the south. And Will Barkley never flew again. This guy, he's still around. He lives in Colorado, I think. I talked to him. Never, he hasn't flown in like 40 freaking years.
That'd be pretty
that would do it, man. That's pretty scary.
I mean, yeah.
I have one more story.
Ray Charles story.
I have one more, and it's a short one. Ray, I was told this by Dwayne Smith, who was in the association with me and played with Ike and Tina Turner and just all kinds of people. He was a real rhythm and blues piano player. He was blind too. But Ray had a drummer in, and when Ray gets excited, you know, his time gets funny. That's why he says, "Watch my foot."
Yeah, right.
He'll speed up and slow down. He don't give a fuck. You know, he gets all jacked up, and he doesn't pay any attention to keeping it real even. You know, and so this drummer, who turned out to be his drummer for years, was trying to keep the thing together while Ray was, you know, leading everybody all over the place. And this guy, and he finally threw down his sticks and said to Ray, "Motherfucker, are you deaf too?" and Ray laughed out loud and said, "That's the guy I want for my drummer." And he was his drummer for years.
You gotta write this stuff down, brother. You've gotta write this stuff.
So what about Little Richard? Like, I know they're totally different people and stuff, but was Little Richard like more easy?
What you got? The way he was on TV was the way he was all the time. I don't know how he maintained that kind of energy level.
So was going to work. It must have been exciting to go to work because you're just kind of like, well, I don't have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow.
Well, he worked hard. He was absolutely a fabulous singer, you know, and a great piano player for what he did. You know, he wasn't a versatile piano player, but he played perfectly for what he did. You know, but what was amazing about him was the mania. To me, it was always there. It was always there. He was always bigger than life. He met my son. My son was 3 years old and was back in the green room. And Richard just loved kids, and he pounced on him, you know, and said, "Well, someday you're going to play piano just like your daddy. You're going to play with Little Richard just like your daddy." And of course, by then, Little Richard would be so old they'll have to wheel him out in a wheelchair, but that don't make any difference. He'll still be playing piano, and he's spitting all over him, you know, and shouting in his face, and everything's going like that. But for some reason, he wasn't scared. He knew this guy was not going to hurt him. You know, there was something about Little Richard that no matter how loud he was, no matter how obstreperous he became, he didn't scare Evan. Evan liked him. You know, he had to back away to keep from getting his face spit in, you know, inadvertently, you know, but he wasn't buffaloed by him. He didn't, you know, he didn't scare him at all, because there was something really, really, truly benevolent about him, truly good-hearted about him.
He was a gentle soul, and it was so obvious when you saw him in interviews and things. I always felt bad in a way for Little Richard, because I always felt that he was, you know, in the modern vernacular, kind of disenfranchised from a lot of the things that he never got credit for. Paul McCartney's "Ooh," and I saw an interview with him about Disney stealing his Tutti Frutti, you know, and it was sad to see that, because that's what they actually did. They just, you know, totally ripped him off, and he never got a dime for so much of what he created.
He certainly didn't get what he deserved.
No,
you know, what he should have got.
when you talk about rock and roll, and you talk about people like Little Richard, and you talk about people like Elvis, and you talk about people that just broke through.
Mhm.
Who else can you actually throw in that whole scene? The Buddy Holly, the Little Richard,
so one of them would be Chuck Berry. So he would say he was the father of rock and roll. Chuck Berry was the father of rock and roll. But then I saw that he would talk shit about Chuck Berry, but truthfully, they were actually friendly. Did you ever hear anything about whether they were not, or
Who, Chuck Berry and Little Richard?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know that they ever even.
I don't think they ever worked together. I don't think so. I'd have to look that one up. I don't think they did.
I would. Yeah.
You'd say Chuck Berry says the father of rock and roll. I'm the father of rock and roll. But some of the stuff was an act. He's playing the fiddle. He knew how to play the media. He was damn good at it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I just wonder. So I don't know, since we're talking about amazing piano players, we have to bring up Jerry Lee Lewis here. I think it would be a travesty. Hey, you got to tell us about Jerry Lee Lewis, otherwise it's kind of a loss. You got any good stories about him, or what was the personality differences with him?
Well, Jerry Lee Lewis, I spent 2 weeks with Jerry Lee Lewis when when I was playing with Ricky Nelson, and we were at the Riviera Hotel sharing a bill with Jerry Lee Lewis. The first week, Rick fronted the bill, topped the bill, and the second week, Jerry topped the bill. That's the way they did it.
Cool.
Because neither one of them was willing to not top the bill at all. So they switched. But we got to, it's interesting. Rick was the last person to get to the dressing room before the showtime. And as soon as the show was over, he was gone. He was gone up to his room. All he wanted to do was be left alone. Yeah. Jerry Lee Lewis, you could pretty much walk into the dressing room anytime, and he would be in there playing. He'd be in there picking. And I remember telling him one time, and it was the truth, after listening to him play country gospel, that I'd seen him do bang, 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 wing, 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 wing. I said, I had no idea how good you were until I got to hear you like this. And he would say, well, bless your heart. He told me, he would tell everybody that would listen that I was the best piano player he ever heard in his life. And of course that's not true. I couldn't, if playing piano the way I play piano was the only thing I did, I couldn't make a living in Los Angeles. I can play some things on piano. I can do some things on piano, but there are guys that can play everything on piano, and they can play it great. I can play along with myself. I can write songs on piano. I can play some pretty nice stuff on piano for some nice rock and roll solos. But you put me in a 19/8 key time signature, or put me in 5 flats and ask me to read it, you're wasting your time. So my piano playing is limited, but he liked what I did because it was the same thing that he did, and he was a very, very, very nice guy. And he was also a crazy guy. He was also a crazy guy. He would get in moods, and I never had any trouble with him ever. But apparently he almost got into a fight with Rick's road manager at one point. It didn't happen, but I remember Greg saying when he saw Jerry Lee Lewis coming for him, he said, "This is it." He said, "I'm going to be the guy that killed Jerry Lee Lewis." He said, because I'm not going to be the guy that Jerry Lee Lewis killed. And that was what went through his head. I'm going to be the guy that killed Jerry Lee Lewis because I'm not going to be the guy that Jerry Lee Lewis killed. And as it turned out, it was, it didn't happen. They didn't get to each other. Somebody tripped over something and somebody got in the way, and everybody was fairly hammered at the time. It was, But for the most part, he was just sweet as could be. And God, could he play and sing.
Yeah.
And but one of my favorite stories about him was when I told him one of my favorite country songs ever. I gotta tell you, it's what made Milwaukee famous, made a loser out of me. You may remember that song by Jerry Lee. It's late and she is waiting, and I know I should go home. You know the song. Every time I start to leave, they play another song. And what made Milwaukee famous made a loser out of me. And Jerry Lee's wife was there, and she was 23 years old. And she was probably the only one who could have gotten away with saying what she said. Jerry Lee Lewis turned to me and said, "Yeah, I remember that song. Who cut that song? Was that Charlie Lee Rich? Was that a Charlie Rich song?" And his wife went, "No, you idiot. You cut it yourself back in 1964. And then he remembered. He remembered all the words and everything like that. Once you remember that it was actually him, but his wife was so cute. "No, you idiot. You cut that song yourself in 1964. And
that's so awesome.
And sang
great, man. Great stories, really.
Speaking of,
Jerry Lee Lewis and Little Richard, man, there's so much in common that it was beyond belief, really. And it's so incredible. You play with, both of these guys. I mean, that's not shit that happens like every century to play with. I'm
glad to get to meet both of them. Yeah.
Seriously.
That's amazing.
Dude, play with both of them like that. Well, I'm going to say it again. Write this shit down, dude.
Well, Jerry Lee and I wrote a song together one night, just sitting around because we were at the airport and he was sitting in his airplane waiting for everything to be loaded up. You could see the door was open. He had a keyboard in his lap and he was playing.
Jeez.
Sitting on the plane. He never stopped playing.
You know what? I wish I was that guy, but I've never been that guy. I wish I was that infatuated with my instrument for 60 years, like he was.
Forever. Yeah. Yeah.
I've just never been that guy. I look at it and he talks about Joel just asked you who intimidates you.
Yeah.
My own guitar intimidates the shit out of me because I look at it like it's mocking me.
Okay?
But you write some great stuff, man. I mean
Yeah, I know, but it's always mocking me. It's always like, "Hey, dude, so you can do it. You're gonna jump in. You're gonna do it." And just when you find people like Jerry Lee Lewis or Little Richard who just played for the sheer joy of playing 24 hours a day if they could, man, those people are like so beyond me and so special.
Yeah.
Well, it means that they never work a day in their lives, although they're working all the time.
Yeah.
Because they're doing what they love. It's like being able to jack off for a living.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because
pretty much, brother,
you play what you love and you make yourself happy and you play stuff that feels good and it makes you happy. Yeah. And it makes other people happy, unlike jacking off.
For me, writing has always been like a Rubik's Cube. I'm trying to, it's always been like how would you say, like a conflict. It's like, I know the song is there and I know what I want it to be. How am I going to find it? And it's always been like this adversarial kind of thing for me to write. It's never been like, I just want to sit here and let this, because I'm sitting in the green room with a keyboard on my lap, entertaining everybody, and I'm coming up with new stuff on top of it. Never been that way for me. And I've always been envious of people like that. Always.
But if you can become that by not expecting anything, sit down and play the blues in E for an hour if you feel with no expectations.
At 62, I'm beginning to discover that. Yes, I appreciate that, David. I'm just coming into that now. But, after 40 years of writing and trying and fighting, I'm just now beginning to understand that you just got to let it come out of you.
Yes.
When the mood strikes you.
That's a great passage in Winnie the Pooh. When Winnie the Pooh adds, he's talking about Tigger, and he said, but whatever his weight in pounds, shillings, and ounces, he always seems bigger because of his bounces. Rabbit said, the shillings don't sound like they belong there. And Pooh said, they wanted to come, so I let them. He said, that's the way you write poetry, letting things come.
Letting
Oh, I see. But the best part is, oh, I see, said Rabbit, but he didn't really, because he never let things come. He always went and fetched them. And there are some things that you can't go and fetch. They got to come to you. And it's a waiting process. And it's a joyful waiting process.
I remember the rabbit from Pooh. And if I had to describe myself as a character from Pooh, I'm the rabbit. And it's, but I'm learning. I'm trying. And
things come.
Every day is a new discovery.
I don't know if you were with me. So Randy Sharp, I think, was the one. He invited me, and it was a singer-songwriter night, and it was it's because I had done that song with Darius with Dean Dinning. And they let me come to this event. And what it was is they had these serious singer-songwriter guys from Nashville play. And one of them was a guy named Bob Reagan. Do you know who I'm talking about, David?
I feel like I should. That name sounds familiar, but I know a lot of people with that name, with that last name.
This guy, man, he could
What did he play?
He played guitar, and he wrote a song for Randy Travis called Dig Two Graves. You can dig two graves, but only carve one stone, because without you here, I'm all alone. I say it wrong, but it was similar to that. I mean, God, and I'm sitting there with these guys knew how to write like really, really good. Yeah. And it was just, it was this recording studio in Orange County. It had a pig in the front of it. And I just remember sitting there watching these five guys play on stage, just thinking like, I am not good at this. These guys know what they're doing. But it was like the best they had to offer. I was so, it meant, you know who was playing? It was Randy's daughter. She was one of the people on the stage. She wrote a song for Bob.
I want to say, but I don't know if that's right.
What is it? It starts with an M.
Maya.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
And she wrote, I think she wrote a song for Bonnie Raitt. But anyway, they all played their songs. And I mean, oh, God, it was so neat to be invited to such a thing. I'll never forget the opportunity. Fantastic stuff. So what happened with the Three Dog Night thing? So I'm assuming you had known some of these guys for a little while because you've been around the circle of.
I had to explain myself for a moment.
I had worked and Alicia had worked with Cory Wells. And he was the only one I knew. And he got a spinal condition that was going to need to be operated on. It was going to keep him out for 3 to 6 months.
Oh.
And he suggested that they call me to take his place. He suggested me and a couple of others.
But it was mainly because of your singing ability, not because
I do not play in Three Dog Night.
Right.
I'm one of the front singers. First band I've ever been in where I wasn't playing an instrument. It took me a while to get used to it. But Tom Halpang, the manager, called me up and asked me if I would like to take the Three Dog Night gig for 3 to 6 months while Cory recovered. And they sent me a tape with all the parts in it, and Cory's left out, and said, put in Cory's part. And it was lead, sing Cory's lead, and I did all that with the help of Alicia. And we sent it into them. And then we didn't hear anything for a long time. And we thought, well, they went with somebody else or they changed their mind or something like that. It ain't happening. And Alicia decided to check it out. And she looked and she found out that Cory was not coming back, that he had in fact contracted a staph infection in the hospital, which burned him down and killed him. And so Three Dog Night was trying to figure out what to do, whether there still was a Three Dog Night, whether they want to just disband and, and instead they decided to call. Tom Halpin called me up and said, we decided to try to go ahead with this thing with you taking Cory's place. And they sent me the material and I learned it. And then we had a few rehearsals in Indiana and started doing 100 shows a year. We did 100 shows a year for 5 years. And I was, when I first went up there for that first show, I was terrified that, that I would be roundly rejected by the people who were Cory Wells fans, that did not happen. Most of the people there didn't seem to notice, and that's the way it's been ever since. I have been, there's been scarcely a ripple in our concert schedule until we've even released a new album. Oh. Until that I'm singing on. Until we start working again. We're starting work again in July.
Did you ever meet Hoyt Axton?
I knew a lot of people who knew him. I met Arnie. I knew Arnie Moore very well, who played with him for years. Delaney knew him very well.
I could see that.
Hoyt Axton, in fact, Delaney had been sober for a year. And when Hoyt Axton came to visit, and they went in to listen to some shit, and both came out fucked up. After Delaney had been sober for a year, Hoyt got him wasted again.
Oh.
And Hoyt, I don't know how Hoyt survived as long as he did. He was 400 pounds taking methamphetamine.
Yeah.
Basis. That would seem to be kind of a contradiction in terms. That's a double whammy right there.
Yeah.
He was a huge guy and he was taking all this speed. But he must have been a tough old boy.
I fucking love his voice, man. The graspiness in that guy is just God.
He wrote great songs too.
Oh, such good. It's Greenback Dollar. I love it.
He wrote Never Been to Spain.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. Well, I never been to Spain. That's Hoyt Axton.
But I've been to where?
But I've been to it. But I kind of like the music.
Oh, but I kind of like the music. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
I love the tune, man.
I like the octave jump. It's fun to sing. That's one of the songs I sing.
Yeah.
I might so if you remember, Matthew Nelson was in my film. He's a really nice guy, man. I don't know Gunnar. I've never met Gunnar, but I know he's a good guy too. But I don't know. Their publicist actually reached out to me about somebody else, and I'm like, oh, I know Matt.
I played with the Nelsons for 10 years.
So I was going to say, if you got any stories about their dad, they wouldn't know. But I mean, I doubted it. If you toured with them for 10 years, you might know. But
I don't think there are very many stories that they don't know. There are things that happened when they weren't there, but I think they were children at the time. They were children at the time. When I first met Gunnar, he was 12 years old. That's now they're in their 50s.
Matthew's a very good songwriter.
Matthew and I have written a bunch of songs together.
Really?
Yes. And so have Gunnar and I. We've both written songs
So
together.
they were great writers, and they had some great tunes.
I agree.
I think I shared the stage with them once with Crazy Horse. It was, I think, a charity event, Golden Voice event or something like that in Hollywood, 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, when I heard the Nelsons, I was like, oh, okay, we'll see what they got. They blew me away. They were so good.
They're very good. They were very,
very, very good.
Well, I'll tell you a true story about the Nelsons. We got ourselves in a bind because Alicia was in Japan. And I was home with the 3 kids. And all of a sudden, we got a week in Hershey, Pennsylvania, while Alicia was still going to be gone. And I had the fortune of Sam was in 2nd grade at the time, and he had a teacher named Tina Walpole who liked him very much and said, Sam can stay with me while you're gone. In the meantime, Yvette, Matthew's girlfriend at the time, had decided she didn't want to go, but she still had her seat. Nancy Lee, the baby, was small enough to carry in my lap, and Yvette's seat was suitable for James. So I took James and Nancy Lee at the ages of 3 and 1 on the road with Nelson with me.
Wow.
And and every day, every show, they came out on stage and sat next to me in their double stroller, and Matthew and Gunnar would introduce them both, and the spotlight would get on them, and it's not everybody that'll share the stage with a couple of babies, that would encourage them to be on the stage with them.
He's a dead.
And everybody had a great time.
I think they have a sister, right? There's a
Tracy Nelson.
Tracy, does she play music too, or?
She's an actress.
What was her show? She had a big time show, right?
Yes, she did. It had to do with being a nun.
Oh, that's right.
It wasn't the Flying Nun, but it was some other.
I'm trying to remember that. She was beautiful.
And she still is. She still is.
What was the name of that show? It wasn't Joan of Arcadia. That was Russ Tamblin's daughter. Damn, I can't remember it. I remember, though, her being an actress and critically acclaimed. I mean, she is.
She's a great actress. She's a great actress. And they have a younger brother named Sam, who looks exactly like Rick.
Really?
A singer. Yeah.
Wow.
I haven't heard from Sam for a while. Sam is not as much a part of the Nelson thing as the other Nelsons are. They're kind of more or less of a tight-knit group, and Sam is a little bit of an outlier by choice.
Yeah.
I shouldn't really be saying this. I don't know anything about what the Nelson situation is, and it's not for me to comment on it. But I saw Tracy all the time, and I saw Sam once in 10 years.
Yeah. Well, it's families, man. That's the way it works, right?
Yeah, people want to do their own thing.
I'm not talking about mine.
Before it was like, Howard Stern, you got your shock jock and stuff, but he doesn't bring up people's kids because it's not, they didn't want to be famous, man. It's you. So don't talk about them. Leave them alone. Let them do their own thing, which I think is awesome. Let people do what they want to do. So
I agree.
Sam's probably smarter than all of us.
They're good. They're good guys, man. Most of the people that I've worked with, in fact, almost all the people that I've worked with have been really good people.
Yeah.
I would say that about musicians in general. I have been told that there are some scuzzbag musicians and agents and things like that, but I have not run across a whole lot of them. Most of the musicians I know are people that I am proud to say were my friends.
Yeah.
For the most part. I can only think of one or two. And even
I'd have
Is
to.
one of them Sonny Mone? Is that they're no good?
No, I most of the people that I work for are just sterling individuals, and I love working with all of them.
You know, not to keep doing what was he like, but I love Kenny Rogers. I was pretty bummed out when he passed away. I think he was a younger guy. It was a little, but so was he a guy you go drinking with, or was he outgoing, or he rushed off to the room afterwards too?
I did not see him for long. I went down there with Herb Pedersen to sing backgrounds to one of the songs.
Herb Pedersen, no kidding. Wow.
Herb Pedersen's an old friend. Wow. I've been in a lot of bands with Herb Pedersen.
Damn.
A lot of bands with her. But in fact, that was the band that I played with Tom Wopat with, North Hollywood All-Stars. It was Herb Pedersen, Trey Thompson, John Moto, and me and George Marinelli.
Was that a Palomino band? I mean, just not to.
No, that was a North Hollywood All-Stars, it was called, and it was Tom Wopat's band. We played the Palomino with him, but it wasn't the Palomino Riders. I was also in the Palomino Riders.
I remember the Palomino days. I mean, I was just, it's like
Palomino,
maybe I'm high,
Is the building even still there?
I'm sorry?
Is the building even still there?
I haven't been there in 25 years. I have no idea.
Yeah. I know the club's been gone for a long, long time.
Oh.
Did you know that Who's the Boss was going to be a big thing on TV?
That what is?
The Who's the Boss show. Did you know it was going to be a big deal?
Did I know? Well, I replaced the singer who had been singing it for the first 2 years. Oh. So it was already a big deal, when I sang it. And it still pays. It's still playing in Germany and Latvia and places, it's still playing. And so is Hardcastle and McCormick and Promised Land, which I also sang the theme to.
Thank
and
God.
Wise Guy and Touched by an Angel. All those things.
Thank God.
Are still playing somewhere in the world. And the check may be $1.95. But sometimes they'll pile them all together and you'll get a check that is actually some money.
Pay the gas bill.
Yeah.
Yeah, but luckily you actually, inked those deals back in the day, because today is a $200 buyout and that's it. You're done.
That's all.
Yeah, or they go to the music collection companies and the buyout's even less. It's just nothing.
Believe me, I've licensed a whole bunch of shit, and I almost could collect a mortgage payment once a year if I'm lucky.
Yeah, well, the problem is really, all of my children are really good musicians. They've worked hard and they've become really good at what they do. And now that they're great musicians, I don't have the faintest fucking idea what to tell them to do.
Same here. My daughter's the same.
I don't know what to tell them to do. If I were starting out today, I would have no idea.
What do I do? A record deal is useless, basically. It's just going to put you in perpetual financial slavery for the most part. Yeah, if you want to tour the rest of your life and pay off your debt.
That's the plan. Yeah.
That's what they have in store for you. So what do? You got to be a TikTok star, apparently.
That's my plan. That's what they're trying to tell me with this podcast is to do. You got to add TikTok. Okay, TikTok. Oh, you need to do Twitter. Oh, okay, a Twitter. Now you need to do an Instagram. And I'm like, dude, I feel like a guy trying to get my high school yearbook signed by all the pretty girls in the school.
I'm going to stop us right now, Joel.
Yeah.
Because we sound like old men complaining.
Yeah, we do. We really do. It's a bitch.
And I hear that all the time.
So here's one for you. So the song Joy to the World was in the X-Files. Scully sings the song to Mulder while he rests. And it's while they're camping. He wants to make sure that she's awake because they're in the wilderness or whatever. Did you know this? Have you seen it? It's actually
no, I haven't.
It's actually you haven't seen it?
No.
It's worth checking out. My girlfriend remembered it, and she's
What's the show now?
Oh, the X-Files.
The X-Files. Okay.
Yeah, you got to give it a go, and it's actually really touching. And then they sing. I think you'll get a kick out of it. It was very good. But I thought it'd be worth mentioning because isn't it funny how these songs get licensed or they're done in different manners that have such a different impact. And it's the same song. Hoyt Axton to partying his ass off writing that song to you guys singing it is it's a totally different take on it. To then it being in this TV show.
Well, that's a Nashville technique. They'll say, write me a copycat of that. Write me a song just like that. That's not that song.
Sure. Let's make it so you can go for cheap. Yeah.
So they can take the idea. It's a good idea, and then put it in different words, and we'll keep the money, not this guy here.
Well, in X-Files, they
hear it all the time, man.
They sing "Joy to the World" in X-Files.
Well, I'm sure they paid for it though.
Yeah, it was a big TV show. I mean,
it's a same show
at the time.
Yeah.
Right, but you have to wonder, who actually signed for that. I always go back to Michael Jackson buying Paul McCartney's Northern songs, and in the stroke of a pen, they turned John Lennon into a jingle writer, pretty much. And it always blew my mind that it's like 6 degrees from the writer, somebody's making money, and the writer always gets his writers. We know that, but there's no control over like where it's going to go, basically. And this whole thing of everybody selling their catalogs these days is great because it's a legacy. Dylan and Neil and Stevie Nicks and all these people, but at the same time, it's like you have no control where the music goes.
You have no control where the music goes, and when you're talking about selling your catalog, you're talking about you talk to 9 out of 10 people under the age of 30, and they don't know who the Beatles are.
Yeah, that's right.
They've never heard of them. Don't know who Ray Charles is. Don't know who, never heard of him. And Neil Young's catalog. Now's the time to sell it if he's going to sell it, because if he wants the name Neil Young to mean anything,
I do not disagree with him selling it. This is good estate planning, as they say.
Yeah.
This is top of the market right now for Dylan.
I don't believe it's going to increase in value. I think the opposite.
Yeah. But it comes back to losing the control over where you're at. I mean, do I really want my song to represent Tesla or Coke or baby powder, or do I really even care? I'm going to be dead. And my family's going to make money. Do I care?
When I first started doing music, one of the reasons that I thought I was doing it, one of my motivations was I thought that we were doing something important. Exactly. I thought we were really going to change things. I thought that
yes,
that the 60s movement, the people in the 70s, the love and the peace and all that kind of stuff, that was going to happen. We could actually pull that off, make the world a better place. That was one of the main reasons that I quit doing what I was doing before and joined music, not because I thought music was going to make me rich, but because I thought music might be something that I could do that was positive. Yeah. And I considered it to be a valid occupation in those times.
I joined for the same reason.
Mm-hmm. I considered it to be valid. I considered it to be relevant and important. Yeah. I thought we were doing important stuff. And
you don't feel that way anymore?
Well, now
it turned out that way.
It made an impact. It made an impact. A lot of things got done.
I think so.
People talk about how bad things are today in terms of people, racial bigotry and stuff, but they forget what they were like when I was a kid. When there were different bathrooms for different colors, and people couldn't go into certain places to eat, and certain people couldn't vote. And I mean, it's bad now, but it used to be way worse than it is now. So something got accomplished, and I don't know. Right now,
I believe what you're saying has credence. I believe that if it wasn't for that drive, if it wasn't for that mixture of wanting to be, creative, but at the same time thinking that your creativity, combined with everybody else at that moment in 1970, 1972, was going to make a difference. I think if that didn't happen, the world would be a shittier place.
Because some songs clearly did make a difference. Some songs clearly did make a difference.
I really believe that.
And
that's why I signed up.
And me too. And I still do it for the love of the 5-4-1 chord, for the blues progression. That there's nothing that makes me happier than 5-4-1. It was an invention of genius. Effortless joy.
Yeah.
Are you missing playing the keys as regularly, or you're having fun singing?
I'm having fun singing. I'm glad I don't have to play the keys because keyboard parts are hard.
Yeah.
Three Dog Night's keyboard parts are hard, and it's not the kind of thing. Every band that I played keyboard in, I just played whatever the fuck I wanted to play. Like Ray Charles, just plays along, and you play with Ray. And when I was usually the lead singer in the band I was in, and so it was me playing the piano and everybody making what I was playing work.
Yeah.
So in many ways, I'm not an ideal. I can do it. I can do it. I can play parts. I can, but when I'm singing, what I'm ordinarily doing is playing, is just riffing along. And
you can read music, I think, right?
I can read. I know the principles. Just like I can read music the way I can type. I know how it's done, but it's not. I'm not somebody who can type 120 words a minute, and I'm not somebody who can sit down and read something straight through. I can read a chord chart. If I'm on a gig, on a jazz gig or some kind of gig like that, and they put a chord chart in front of me, I'm good. I can play solos over chord changes, But if it's something like Beethoven or some kind of a concerto or something like that,
But I'll assume like these piano. I mean, I don't think Jerry Lee Lewis or Little Richard or.
No, none of them were classical piano players.
Well, they wouldn't know how to read it either, I don't think. George Martin, I would think, would know how to read music pretty good.
There are a few, Elton John, I'm sure, won piano playing contests as a child. He entered as a pianist, as a classical pianist, and won.
So here's a fun one. So my friends, I was trying to put this thing together. My friend's fifth grader, I think. She's like, you should ask, I have a question, you should ask people, when did they first feel famous? And I kind of liked it because you don't need to be quote unquote sitting on fame to feel famous. So what was the first time you can remember, like quick off, the quickest thing that comes to mind where you felt famous for each of you?
I can tell you two stories. The first one, we were doing a show somewhere. It was an outdoor show, and I did Eli's Coming, and I was all jacked up, and I really screamed out Eli's Coming.
Which band? Sorry, is this with?
This is Three Dog Night.
Okay,
Three Dog Night. I'm singing Eli's Coming, and at the end, whoa, 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 and jump down to that.
I'd love to hear you sing that, dude. What a great song.
And 5,000 people jumped up and screamed, leaped up and screamed and kept on screaming. And then there was another time. I had been in Los Angeles for about 2 years, and I was playing for $25 in a club named Hollahan's, and I was playing by myself, single. And I started playing Love in Arms by Dobie Gray. And there were 6 couples in the club. There were the club held more than that, but at that particular time on a Sunday night, there were 6 couples at 6 different tables, just kind of hanging and talking and sipping their drink. And I played Love in Arms. You remember Love in Arms? The Dobie Gray song?
Dobie Gray, I know.
I've been too long in the wind, too long in the rain.
Oh yeah, thank you.
We just wanted to hear you sing it. I think we kind of like Sonny knows it. Yeah.
I started singing Love in Arms again. And during the thing, I was, I had a little bit of a buzz on, and it's not a hard song to play. So I just kind of relaxed into it, and I closed my eyes for about the first half of the song. And when it came time to come up to the bridge, I opened my eyes to make sure that I went to the right place. And I looked out at the audience, and every human in the room was kissing. Every single one of them. Every person at every table, they were all kissing. And you could ask me which time was more meaningful for me, and I know what most people would think, but it's not the case. The thing that got me the most were the people who were responding to what was actually happening rather than to what they thought was happening.
So true.
Those were the 2 times when I recall feeling like, okay, I'm doing something right here.
I love it. So what do you got, Sonny?
Huh?
Sonny, what's your turn? It's your turn, Sonny. What do you think?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
No problem. So the question was, it's my friend's daughter who's in 5th grade or 4th grade. And so she came in the room, we were having dinner, and she's like, I have a question and you should ask your people. And the question was, when was the first time in your life you felt famous? And you don't need to be, you don't need fame to be famous. When was the first time you felt, special? Something was going on. You felt good about yourself. You smiled. It was the first that comes to mind.
Right. I think it was on Hollywood Boulevard, and somebody said, "Aren't you the singer for Simple Fools?"
Yeah.
I was like, no.
No.
Actually, I mean, if I really came down to it, there was 2 instances. I had a show at this place called Tranca's. David, do you remember Tranca's in Malibu?
Of course.
It was like,
I played there with Delaney.
Okay. Great.
Yeah.
So Crazy Horse got booked there for my very debut night as their lead singer. This is 1986, probably.
Yeah.
And, of course, everybody thinks they're impromptu, but they're not. They rehearsed me into the ground. But we came out and it was sold out. It was standing room only. And there were actually like a couple of people from, not the mainstream media, but they were like people there from the media,
Mm-hmm.
And a couple of people I recognized from like, I don't know, like one of those weird entertainment shows that used to be like in the 80s, like.
Right. Hullabaloo guy.
But I looked down and it's like, holy shit, that's really her, So at that moment, even though I was almost throwing up on stage, I felt like, oh, look, I've arrived. A kid from Boston showed up, hooked up, paid my dues. I wasn't, didn't just happen,
Yeah.
And I delivered. And not only did I deliver, it was a great show. And at the end of the night, they tried to rip us off of the door, which was classic. Right? Yeah, right. And I almost like beat up the owner.
You gotta love it. I totally believe it.
Right.
Yeah.
The second thing, and this is like, it's pretty cliche, but we did a video and we got like, I think they played it maybe a dozen times on VH1, and seeing yourself on VH1 in 1980, probably 8 by then, was, kind of a validation sort of back then. Do you know what I mean? When I was like 29, 30, you know, thinking I was going to make it by the time I was 30, and I felt like I did, you know, because the 20s were a struggle, you know, songwriting and all that. And so, you know, yeah, it was kind of cliche, but I was like, wow, look at me. I'm on VH1, you know, with Neil Young's band. So I actually had to steal a band in order to make it, you know. Later on, I realized, you know, sort of made it.
You did make it.
I think you made it for sure. There's no question.
Yeah. Anyway, I was lucky enough to play with those guys. And if you really want to ask me when I felt famous, it was my first rehearsal with Crazy Horse in Thousand Oaks, when I knew I'd known them for like less than a week. And they said, come on by the rehearsal house that they had, a house that they built out here. And this is in 1985, I suppose. And I walked in, they handed me a 1957 Stratocaster and said, do you know Cinnamon Girl? I'm like, oh, yeah, sure. And it was all headphones at the time, with a click track that was louder than anything I'd ever heard in my life. And then the band started playing. But halfway through the song, I realized I was standing there in the middle of this room singing Neil's part on Cinnamon Girl, helping them rehearse. And that was the start of my relationship.
Yeah, man. That's how it starts.
That's what felt like, yeah, I've arrived kind of a thing, you know?
Yeah. Cool. You know, so Sonny and I had talked about it. Who do you think right now is, you know, might continue to make waves or make waves? And you had brought up, oh God, you know, one of them, they brought up Billie Eilish. It was John Mayen from Elton John's band. John plays percussion with Elton since sometime in the 90s. And he thought Billie Eilish and Bruno Mars had a lot of a way to go. He thought they could really develop and continue to develop into doing some really great stuff. You said Taylor Swift, I think, Sonny, when we spoke. But
we didn't talk about Billie Eilish.
We did not. No, that was John, and John thinks she can do some really great stuff.
A 19-year-old talent like that, if she doesn't get hung up in it all, you know, her Vogue thing is already, you know, splashed all over the paper today. The girl, obviously, she's got like tons of talent.
Yeah.
But her brother, in my opinion, is even more talented. Phineas is the guy that actually told her, I'm going to make you famous.
No.
He's the one that's behind the scenes, making it happen, pushing it. See how far she can go. You know, we'll see how far she can go. I've always asked the question, after Neil Young finished up with Buffalo Springfield, there was a break in there, you know, before he hooked up with Crosby and Nash, and, you know, he just kind of floated for like a year or two. And my question always was, if Neil had to work at a car wash for 2 years, instead of the record company saying, hey, we'll support you, keep going, make it happen, you know, we think you've got the potential to be great. Would Neil Young be Neil Young? Would he just, you know, put his head down and burn through it all, even though, you know, just to make everybody see that he was Neil Young? Or
like to
would
think so.
Would he have fallen off the cliff? I think that's where Billie Eilish is at right now. Everybody.
So many things happen by quarter inches and by half a second and by 30 seconds. You know, somebody that you meet. I started doing sessions. I started doing TV and commercials because Mark Viha, who ran Lanny Music, what the biggest thing, the biggest jingle house in Los Angeles, was singing a song for a friend of ours for the movie Teen Wolf. And I was singing another song for the movie Teen Wolf. And he sang right before me. And while he was still standing around, I sang my song. And he said, you know, I could use a voice like yours. Let me have your number. And that started a whole new thing. That started a whole new thing. And it happened by a few seconds. A couple of minutes would have made all the difference. All the difference.
Amazing, huh?
It's just, it's like John knocking his Coca-Cola over on my piano and giving me my wife. You know, when I looked at that piano, it's funny how things work out, because when I looked at that piano, was covered with coke, dripping, smoking, whooping, making little sparks, I did not see anything good about it. That was a totally negative situation. It was an out-and-out catastrophe. There was nothing, there was no silver lining here. This was fucked up. My keyboard was ruined. We had a night to play. We couldn't play it. We were fucked. There was nothing good about it. Everything good that ever happened to me since happened because of that.
Right. Somebody showed up with a DX7.
Somebody showed up with a DX7 who turned out to be the nicest girl I ever met and still is.
Isn't that wild?
It's 30 years later.
Well, I totally agree with you. Back to the Billie Eilish, the Taylor Swift. You know, Taylor Swift, for all that she isn't, in my opinion, has been a pretty awesome songwriter for her genre for a very long time. And if you actually listen to her craft, there's no disputing that. Her craft is very good. She's not stupid. She listened and she learned, you know, and she's been handled. It's obvious, but I think this past year, I think she caught on to the fact that she was being handled with the heavy pop stuff, and she turned her head back into the past and really started looking inward. And the latest stuff she's come out with is really, I mean, it's definitely
substance.
It's like it's good.
Yeah,
it's some good songwriting. So, you know, I look at that like, you know, how do you judge somebody in 2021 and compare them against somebody that was our institution of writing in 1972? You can't. You know, I can't compare Taylor Swift to Bob Dylan. It's just not fair to Bob Dylan or Taylor Swift, really. You know, so I look at her like, for what she does, her craft to me seems to be spot on. Billie Eilish, she's breaking new ground. There's no question about it. Her voice is different. Her writing is different. And her look and her persona and her attitude are different. And that's what it's always taken to move music forward, in my opinion.
I have a slightly different approach on that. I'm older than you, and so my two interests in music, I am not interested in keeping up with what's going on, not in the slightest. I do music with Three Dog Night, and I write music of my own. I do what I like, you know. I don't try to listen to any other singers. I'm what I am. I'm not going to be influenced by them. I listen to the radio every once in a while, and every once in a while I hear a song I like. But I am not the way I was when I was always, when I knew everybody and every song and everything. I don't.
I'm the same, believe me.
I don't keep up. I do not keep up. I do the Three Dog Night show, and I write songs of my own. And beyond that, I sit out and watch the grass grow, which is a lot more fun than I thought it was.
One last, though, as we're winding down. Do you think that winning the war with your house, you think it made you a better person because you won?
I think it made me a happier person.
Yeah.
A better, I would have been the same person whether I'd won or lost. I think it was the fact that what happened was that when Alicia said what she said,
Yeah.
He completely ignored our apparent catastrophic ruin in favor of something that I suddenly realized the bank couldn't take anything away from me that was going to hurt me, you know? And all of a sudden I wasn't afraid of the bank anymore.
Yeah.
That was what happened. I didn't care what they thought of me. I didn't care if they put me in jail. But I was going to go down there and they were going to remember me.
That's all. Walt Whitman. You know, what are you doing in there? And he's like, what are you doing out there? You ever heard this one? He wouldn't pay his taxes and they put Walt Whitman in jail. And those are his friends. What are you doing in there, Walt? Yeah.
Talk to Henry Thoreau about that, you know.
Yeah. I mean, if you let him.
You know, in my opinion, again, Joel, if I lost my house tomorrow and I still had my family, my daughter and my wife, I don't think I'd change a bit. I'd be a little more bitter about the world.
Yeah.
But in terms of who I am.
That's quite a change, unfortunately.
It's a big change. Yeah. But would it change me as who I am? I mean, basically, essentially, am I going to change because
you're not going to lose your house? You're not.
No.
Yeah, now things are different. You know, you have now you have equity before.
I don't think that the essential me would change whether I lost everything tomorrow, as long as I had my daughter, my family, my wife, you know, and maybe one of my 3 dogs, you know, possibly my horse.
They'll come.
I just don't equate myself to that anymore.
Yeah.
I think even when I got this place 20 years ago, and when I looked at what I had, and when I look at how lucky I've been, I mean, luck is like huge, and how, you know, just because of the way the cards fell, it turned out good for me. Mm-hmm. If that was all taken away tomorrow, other than a good slab of bitterness, possibly, essentially, I'd be the same person. I'd be okay. I'd be like, okay, so we're moving on. We're moving to Kansas where the rent is cheap, or whatever it is. But
obviously.
I'd still be looking for another gig. You know, nothing would change. I'd be like, I got to work. Let's go find some gigs, man. What's going on?
Why did you pick Kansas?
Because I have a friend moving there next month, and I'm trying to talk him out of it.
I got a bunch of rentals in Kansas, so that's hilarious that you chose
Kansas.
No, don't do it.
Isn't Kansas the only state left in the union that doesn't even allow medicinal marijuana?
It's all changing now. I know they're coming at it. I know Missouri is there, so I'm not sure. They're on their way. I mean,
I think it's the only state left in the union where, if you're not insane, then you get arrested. Sorry.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I gotta go. My phone is dying. David.
Yeah.
This has been the most awesome conversation, dude.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed it thoroughly myself.
Like all of this.
Oh, it's cool. So
obviously you're still writing.
Oh yes.
If you're interested, I can get your email from Joel.
Please do.
I'd love to send you some lyrics.
I sent you.
Yeah, let's do it.
When I sent you the Zoom link, you guys, they're sent to both of you, so you have each other's information. And then, I don't know how active you are, but
connect. You never know. I'm old school, way old school, from the Neil camp, doing the kind of, the whole thing, like that whole band, Dylan, whoever kind of sound. But if you zero in on 72. That'd be me. I would love to write.
All right, let's get together, all 3 of us.
And then if you guys are on the, I got the Facebook group Party Like a Rock Star. So if you can add it, that would help me. And then the Twitter handle is Party of Stars, which is the Twitter, the Instagram, and everything else. And then that'd be cool. Okay, cool. Well,
wonderful,
guys. It was fun. If there's any other music guys that who might want to jump on, let me know. I need people. So
I will certainly do that.
David, I'll shoot you some stuff, and Joel, I'll copy you on it. And you never know.
Yeah, it'd be cool.
It'd be fun.
I'd like to get into lyrics again. It was fun while I was doing it. I just, stuff happens, and I I stopped doing it, but
I know. You never know. You got to do it when it hits you, you know?
Exactly. Well, it's a pleasure meeting you, and it's a pleasure seeing you both.
All right, David.
A lot of fun. Adios.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Yeah, 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 yeah.